So years ago, I was a wedding planner. Wedding planning obviously requires you to be detail-oriented and have excellent time management skills, but you also need to really learn how to deal with some batshit situations. So this particular batshit happened in 2009, and I remember because it was the end of the recession and I was broke, and I was just finishing up my divorce and starting to date again. And so one day my office phone rings, and nothing good starts with a whisper, but the woman on the other end says, "My daughter's getting married in a few weeks, and you've got to save this wedding." And she refuses to give us any more details, insisting that we must come uptown to her apartment, because only then will we understand the scale of her conundrum. And while this sounded crazy, I realized that I was broke, and so I agreed to go. And as she was hanging up the phone, she says, "By the way, I'm very, very rich." And she was, because when we got there, she lived in one of those grand old apartment buildings on Park Avenue, the kind with the doorman with the uniform and the cap, and he opens the brass door, and they're in this giant lobby, and there's only 2 elevators because each elevator goes up and opens into its own apartment. And so we get up to the apartment, and the maid outfit greets us and takes us down a long corridor into the library that's really just a room for books, and there, waiting for us alone, is the mother of the bride. And we're going to call her Mia, just for sake of convenience. And Mia says, "This is dire." She's embarrassed of all of it. And not the library or the maid per se, but her daughter was embarrassed of being rich. And she had been living as a closeted rich person her entire adult life. None of her friends knew that she was rich. Her future in-laws didn't really have any idea. And so now, this has been driving Mia crazy, right? She's refusing my finery. She's living in squalor. She's refusing Mia's clothes. She's walking around in Old Navy, and it's just been a nightmare. And Mia, it's the cross that poor Mia's had to bear for the last 2 decades. Only now, everything is coming to a head with this engagement, because last year, Mia's other daughter got engaged, and Mia threw her a giant wedding at the Pierre and plastered the ballroom in orchids. And so now this daughter realizes, well, I can't let my mother have anything to do with this, otherwise the jig is up. Everyone's gonna know that I'm rich. And by the way, this impoverishment posturing isn't completely new nor new to me. As long as I've known rich people, I've known people like this. In fact, probably amongst us now, someone just asked you to Venmo them $5 for Starbucks, and next week they'll secretly be skiing with their rich parents in Aspen. But in any case, Mia's daughter decides she's going to take matters into her own hands and plan this wedding herself, armed, of course, with Mia's checkbook. And so she goes along, and now the wedding's a few weeks away, and Mia finally goes to the tasting, and Mia finally sees the venue, and Mia finally realizes this is a piece of shit. And she turns to her daughter, and she's like, "You can pretend to be poor all you want, but I can't have my friends and family coming to this." And so they get into a giant fight, and they agree that the only way to resolve this is by hiring a wedding planner. And the only wedding planner that the 2 of them could agree upon was my company. Now, I want to say that I was surprised by this, except that at the time, a lot of my competitors were really doing opulence, as in plastering the ballroom of the Pierre with orchids. And we were known for doing what I like to think of as understated luxury, which in 2009 meant we knew how to make a barn seem like a 5-star restaurant. So that this landed in our lap didn't completely surprise me. And at the time, we would take turns with the batshit, and the turn was mine, and so now it's me. And the reason why the meeting was so urgent was because Mia had to get to us before her daughter did. Her daughter was planning on calling us on the morrow and hiring us for this affair, and Mia was like, "I needed you to get here so I could explain to you how things were going to work," and they were going to work like this. You say yes to everything she says. If she asks what it costs, you say it's already included in the contract, and then secretly, you and I are going to plan the wedding that I want. Now, I would have felt badly about this, except that then the next day when I met the daughter, she actually did have terrible taste, or at the very least, mildly insulting ideas of what she thought poor people would do at their weddings. I mean, she would have had everybody sitting at picnic tables and drinking out of jam jars if she had her chance. And so, I felt like I could do a service here, because Mia was kind of a riot, and as I said, I was kind of broke. Plus, Mia took an immediate interest in my love life, which I really appreciated at the time because my friends, after having just survived my divorce, were over it. And I had just met this guy. You know, I'd been married to my ex-husband for 10 years, and so I'd never online dated. And I went on the internet, and I met this guy, and he was charming, and he was handsome, and he had a great job. And above all, he had this thing that I used to really look for in a guy at that time. He had a sadness about him. And I don't know why I needed that. I just did. And it was so sad. I mean, it was so sad. He married his college sweetheart. They'd always intended on having a big family. Year after year after year goes by. There's infertility problems. Instead of bringing them together, it pulls them apart. And he's so open, and he's so vulnerable, and he's so sad. And I just was all in. You know, we're texting, we're calling, we're running all over Manhattan, traipsing around at all hours of the night, arguing the existence of God, all in. And Mia couldn't get enough. I mean, she was making up reasons to have meetings, to get me to come uptown, and we'd share 3 bottles of wine, and I'd tell her all about it, and there we were. And everything was great until everything was terrible, because Mia's daughter decides that she wants to reduce the carbon footprint of the wedding. And she wants to do this by having edible escort cards so that we don't waste anything. The escort card, for those of you who don't know, is the little piece of paper that's at the cocktail hour that tells you what table to sit at when the dinner starts. And Mia's daughter decides that we're going to save the environment by having bacon-wrapped dates with a toothpick in them and a teeny little tag that has your name and then the table number, and then you're just going to eat it. And so I did what I was supposed to do, and I said, oh, yes, oh, that is a great idea. And then immediately when she left, I emailed Mia and said, what are we going to do? It's going to look like a table full of floating turds. And Mia replies, oh, Jesus Christ, I wish you were my daughter. Now, they say that there's no accidents, but that night, Mia forgot to log out of her Gmail. And her daughter went on the computer and saw the correspondence and insisted, as one would imagine, that I be fired immediately. Except that Mia couldn't quit me, and I don't know that I could quit Mia. And so instead, we devised this elaborate ruse, more elaborate than the original ruse. And we were going to have one of my employees, and I'm not proud of this, but we had one of my employees pretend that she worked for the caterer. And we sent an email introducing them and saying that I was hands off. It's all in this woman's hands. And they go off, and she tells this woman all of her hopes and dreams. And nothing that the bride and this woman holds any water, because the only thing that matters is what happens between me and Mia. And so they're off planning this modest, eco-friendly wedding. And Mia and I are planning this lavish, environmentally unsound affair. We are making custom-made furniture. We've got flowers imported from Holland wrapping around the windows of this loft. We're reflooring the floors. We're covering, we're landscaping a deck. It was going to take 3 days to just set this party up before it even happened. And in the meantime, I'm still dating this guy. Only it's starting to get weird. This divorce is starting to feel very, very complicated. It involved real estate and a soft real estate market. And only in New York does somebody say to you, well, you know, it's so difficult because of the soft real estate market. And you say, of course. But I was starting to feel like I was unwittingly sleeping with a married man, and it didn't feel good. And so I was like, you know, why don't you let things settle? See how long this takes, let things settle, or let the market perk up, either one, and then call me and let's see where we are. You never know. And I really was trying to be very zen about the whole thing because I was really into him, but it was hard because he was also kind of rich and I was also kind of broke. And he never said that he was rich, but he said things. You know, he talked about how he'd gone to this prep school, had a big wedding of his own at the plaza. I could put 2 and 2 together, and so could Mia. And she was really cheering this on. She'd grown up poor, so she was like, marry rich, it's so fun. It's so fun. So, a couple days after this breakup of sorts, Mia calls me, as usual, frantic, urgent, panicked, napkins. We've got to talk about napkins. You've got to get uptown to this linen store, and we need to talk about these napkins. And we are there being persnickety about napkins for like forever until we then go and have our usual lunch where we split a salad and 2 bottles of wine. And she's asking about the guy, and I tell her, you know, about what happened and how I had to make the break. And I was like, you know, I'm holding out hope. You never know. Love finds a way. And all of a sudden, I just remember something that I couldn't believe I'd never brought up before. And I was like, you know what, Mia, it's so funny. I was like, he actually went to the same prep school as your fake poor daughter. I was like, I wonder if you know him. Know him. Does Mia know him? The elevators? Mia lives on 17 South. His parents live in 17 North. She had just seen him the weekend prior in the Hamptons with his wife and their 6-year-old son. Mia remembered the son's age because she had been at the kids' bris. There is no divorce. There is no apartment on the market. There is nothing but this guy being a terrible, terrible person, which at this point I'm also not that sure that Mia and I aren't, because we are still going behind her daughter's back to plan this wedding. We are not only having this adulterous mother-daughter affair, but we're running a con on this poor girl whose worst sin is that she's got terrible taste in escort cards. I just was starting to feel terrible, but I was in too deep. So the day of the wedding comes, and I'm there setting up, and I'm folding the beautiful napkins, and I'm fixing the forks, and everything is perfect. I mean, the flowers are fully in bloom, the $100 bottles of wine are all chilled. I've got 5 staff members there secretly disguised as waiters. And very, very nice-looking waiters, because Mia didn't like the original uniform, and so we upgraded, obviously. Now, clearly, I couldn't be there, because the bride never wanted to see my face again. So I take myself to a restaurant a few blocks away, and I'm calling in orders to my staff, and I'm texting with frantic Mia, who's like, she's gonna find out what we've been up to. She's gonna find out what we've been up to. And I am assuring her, Mia, we're almost at the finish line. It's gonna be a beautiful day, just a few more hours to get through. She's never gonna find out. Now, I didn't realize that the reason why Mia was so confident that her daughter was going to find out is because Mia was going to get drunk and tell her. And so halfway through the reception, she pulls her daughter aside and confesses the entire scheme. And this poor girl, on her wedding day, realizes that her life these last few weeks has been a lie. She's surrounded by traitors everywhere she turns. And she, of course, sees red, and who can blame her? Take it from me, finding out that you've been deceived does not feel good. And she says to Mia, I refuse, you can never see her again, you can never talk to her again. If I find out that you're having any more contact with the wedding planner, I'm cutting off all contact with you. And so Mia acquiesces, and she agrees to family therapy and individual therapy, and she's never going to see me again. And she sends me a dramatic text message that says, she knows everything. This is goodbye. Except Mia being Mia, of course it wasn't really goodbye. I still hear from her every now and then, maybe a call, sometimes a text. But in looking back, I sometimes can't help but wonder, was this gorgeous, lavish wedding really worth the culminating in a fight between mother and daughter? Would they have been better off with picnic tables and jam jars and escort cards that looked like turds? Then again, relationships can be mended, but wedding photos are forever. Thank you very much.